Hello, my name is host Eric. I'm the host Talking with Famous People. And this Sunday evening, I'd like to begin by talking about one of these topics that I've written down here, which is to expand a little further on something that I've been thinking about a lot since it happened. I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before, when we were discussing perspectives on some, just generally perspectives, I think, in general, but JC indicated that I ought to look at myself as though from the outside, as though from an outside perspective. And I said, "You mean like from another person's perspective?" And she said, "No, you look at yourself from the outside, but not from another person's perspective." And I said, "This doesn't even make any sense at all. How could you look at yourself from the outside without another person's perspective?" And Megabro interceded and said, JC, I think you're telling him to use FI. And, all of a sudden, like, a bunch of, like, slabs shifted in my head. My reality slabs shifted a bit. Because it was an odd framing. And since I've thought about it a lot, and I've realized it's a really good framing. It's, in fact, the best definition for introverted feelings that I've ever heard. The capacity to understand oneself from outside without adopting a third party's perspective. That's introverted feeling. That's the definition of it. The ability to perceive one's own state as though from outside oneself, but not through any third-party framework. That's a good definition for feelings. So, in addition, though, to being revelatory about a good definition for feelings, I think it's very revelatory about the nature of human consciousness and some of the blunders that we're all subject to because of the way it's set up. It seems to me it's as though we are... A good analogy is this. We each have 4 senses, let's say. Let's just pretend, for the sake of simplicity, we're only talking about these 4. We've got touch, we can feel things. We've got sight, we can see things. We've got sound, we can hear things. And we got smell, taste. Okay? So, again, touch, sight, sound, hearing, and smell, taste. 4 things. Now, in this analogy, of course, the cognitive functions are the senses that I just indicated. And there are 4 cognitive functions, but there are, of course, 8 manifestations of them. In this example, we're not going to have extroverted or introverted. We're just talking about a simpler analogy to make a point. So the point here is every human being in this analogy is only given 3 of the 4 senses. However, nobody is aware of this fact somehow. So as you're walking through life, 1/4 of the people you encounter are blind, but they don't know they're blind, and nobody else knows they're blind either. And then 1/4 of the people are deaf, but they don't know they're deaf, and nobody else does either. And 1/4 of the people can't touch things and distinguish between objects by the feel, like they don't know if they're holding something right now or not. Except by looking. Oh yeah, I'm holding it. I can see I'm holding it. They can't feel it, right? And then 1/4 of the people have no sense of taste or smell. That obviously would be the choice to be. You'd rather be in that group. But regardless, now, this is the way this world works. Nobody's aware of everybody else's sense blindness. And they're going into various situations. So, situation A. They go to a museum. And there's Abe, Bob, Carl, and Eunice Okay, Abe, Bob, Carl, and Eunice, A, B, C, D, and E, and each of them represents 1/4 of that population. So you go to the museum. Abe's like, "Oh my God, that painting's so beautiful." Bob's like, "Yeah, it is." And Carl's like, "Yeah, it is." And Eunice is like, "Yeah, it is." But one of them is blind. How does this happen? Well, because nobody's aware that these sense gaps are occurring. The blind people aren't aware they're blind, and so they've learned to interpret words that people say as meaning things other than they do. So they've learned to interpret the painting is beautiful as that painting is set in such a quiet, serene environment, because it's always correlated thusly previously to in their experience. So you agree, it sure is beautiful, and everyone thinks that everyone understands each other. Now, actually, what's happened here is Abe, who's a sight dom, has said it's beautiful and is looking at the picture and going, "Wow, that's really beautiful." Bob, who's let's say a touch dom, is saying he can still see, though he's not blind, so he prefers to feel things like sculptures, but he gets it. Same thing with the smell and taste guy. He doesn't have any smell and taste. He would prefer maybe to hear things, but he gets it. He's not blind. Now the hearing guy, he's blind. He doesn't get it at all. And he's defaulted to the most strong correlation he can find, the strongest correlation, and that is between quiet and the occurrence of the sentence, "Paintings are beautiful." Now let's go to the second place. Now we go to the taco stand, and it's the person who has no smell and taste who's screwed. So everyone's like, "This is delicious," and he's like, "Yeah, it sure is delicious," by which he thinks that means it's filling me up. I'm not hungry anymore. He has no way of knowing what even the concept of delicious is. So then they go to the third place, and you've got the symphony orchestra, and the guy who's deaf goes, "Yeah, it sure does sound beautiful," because he's just looking at the things, the motions coordinating with each other. And finally, lastly, the person who doesn't feel things, they go, "Oh, that really hurts," when they notice there's blood on their hand. Meaning, "Oh, I've damaged this part of me, this thing, this object part that doesn't feel anything. I've damaged it." They don't mean, "Ow, that really hurts," like they're experiencing pain, because they don't feel that. They're just going through the motions of saying it. So the correlation here, not the correlation, the analog here is the cognitive function model. And I think whereas that's kind of a faintly ridiculous analogy, in the sense that it would be really hard pressed to imagine a world where it could be set up like that and people not know, right? Like 25% of the people are blind and not know it. But the fact is, whatever your seventh function slot is, and whatever your seventh slot function is, you really don't understand at all how that thing is used by other people. It's a complete mystery to you. So in some kind of functions, that's a lot easier to understand that it's a mystery. When somebody goes, I say, "Oh, just here's a topic, just roll with it. Just go ahead and come up with some shit. You'll be fine." And they go, "Eric, I can't do that. I don't that's not how I operate. I don't know how to do that. I wouldn't want to try. It doesn't even make any sense at all to me." If I said, "Basement Overlord, hey, how you doing? Good. Can you please, real quick, do me a favor, and for the next 15 minutes just sit here and spout out random shit?" I think if he were by himself, if he were trying to monologue like I'm doing right now, he would run afoul of some problems, even though he's an experienced YouTube video maker. And I don't think he scripts out his videos or anything, but I think he knows very clearly going in what his video is going to be about. I have a note here that says, Viewing from outside without adopting a third-party framework, 3 of 4 senses. That's what my note says. Everything else is come to be understood by me as I'm saying it. It's just the gist of the idea I got down, and the rest of it, as I say the words, I go, oh, that's what I mean, I guess. In the same way that the blind person goes, oh, they're talking about the quiet. They're talking about how cool and quiet it is in here. I can hear that really well. In fact, the blind person can hear that more well than anybody else, because that's their dominant way of attending to things. But that's not what everybody else is talking about. So, in that regard, I feel the same way about FI in the experience I referenced at the outset of this video. That I assumed JC was just being a sloppy thinker. JC, you can't look from outside yourself without adopting a third-party perspective. Hello, duh. And then when Megabro said, I think you're asking him to use FI, I had a sense of like, oh, that's what people mean when they say like being true to yourself or something, or they don't mean doing what you want, which is how I've always interpreted it. I'm being true to myself means I get to do what I want all the time. That's being true to myself. Or being true to myself is holding myself accountable for inconsistencies in what I say, what I preach, and what I practice. That's being true to myself for sure. Objective self-criticism, I say, is a good way of being true to myself, that if I can note moments of hypocritical contradictions, that I call myself out on that shit. But what people really mean by that is not anything that I've ever thought they meant by it. It's something totally different. It's like, how am I right now? Okay. It's like, you know how people go, how you doing right now in general right now, Eric? Like, not this moment, but these last couple of months. If asked that, I will think to myself, oh, I'm actually the last couple months have been great. I'm really excited about talking to fans people. That phenomenon is not referring to my emotional state at all. I'm just saying, oh yeah, you mean that list we keep to know if we're doing shit that we think we should do or not? Oh yeah, I know that list. I have that. I've been checking things off of it. So that means I'm great. I'm good. But they probably don't even mean that at all. They mean like, how are you feeling or something. But the problem with it, the reason I'm sort of feeling blind in this area is I do get feelings in the short term. I don't get what people mean when they talk about having feelings that persist, like as though they were a belief. People talk about their feelings like they talk about their beliefs. Neither of those things persist in that way for me. I'm believing, like I'm saying these words right now, I'm believing these are good logical points to be making. I think there's a certain amount of insight in these words. I think it's a cool link to existing things. I think it's a cool way that it links back into something that happened in a previous conversation, and it's cool. There's another example of Megabro saying like 2 words, and then the whole rest of the time, that's the only thing I'm thinking about from that whole video is the 2 words that Megabro said. So I think it's cool on a lot of those levels. But if you were to ask me, well, do you believe it? I'd be like, what do you mean? I'm going to act, I guess I act like it's true or something? I'll talk about it. I don't know. What do you mean? Well, do you feel happy? I mean, I'm not crying. Both those things, I have a problem with our definitions a little bit, but it's not just that I realize. I have a problem with my own lack of ability to perceive in those areas. So that's my thoughts on that. And I don't know if anybody wants to offer any comments. I've heard some beeps saying people coming in and leaving and stuff. Anybody have any comments they'd like to offer? We've got Eric, Marjay, me, and Megabro.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot like a one-dimensional function in socionics, where at best you can have like momentary experiences, but you're not good at two-dimensional norms or three-dimensional like situations or whatever it's called, or
Well, I'm wondering if it's if those two things are achieving the same kind of behavior, so to speak, in the system for opposite reasons. The feelings, that I agree, that would make perfect sense. I don't even have it. I think I have like 0 dimensions, right? SI, I've gotten 1. I can hustle and straighten things up if I have to, but if I don't even have it in any dimensions, do I? And then, but on the other hand, with the beliefs thing, I think it's because I have any in 4 dimensions that I don't have to have beliefs that I feel attached to, Or maybe it's a
probably
combo of both.
compounded a lot.
Yeah, you think they compound each other? See, that's what I've accepted the term, but this thing about feelings are where our values come from. I always just sort of accepted that term without really thinking about it. But when I think about it now, I go no, that's not where your fucking values come from. But of course, then when I think about it again, I go, oh, I guess it is. It's like, that's not where my values come from. I don't think. But at the same time, I also recognize the fact that 7-Eleven experience I had the other day, and I heard somebody else echoing a similar experience, where I walked out of 7-Eleven and I thought to myself, wait, what was I feeling anxious about when I walked in here? And then I remembered, oh, it's a money thing, and I had done what I could do, and I just had to chill and not worry about it. There was nothing I could do about it. So there was that I could do about it. I already done it. I just had to wait for, transfers or the bank to finish putting the check through or something. But so that's an example of how the significance, the weight of something was maintained without any other information. And the thing that did that was the feeling. So my memory maintained that there is some matter of weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, and that weight was sustained in its emotional imprint, not in any of the information. Once I recaptured the most basic link, which was between the emotional anxiety and some specific thing, idea, like, oh, money. And then all the information all fell back into place. Everything fell back into place. Oh, that's what I was saying. Now I remember. Okay. But the thing that maintained, sustained, made sure that weighty shit doesn't get ignored. It's like, no matter how much I'm into editing this video right now and having trouble getting up and getting away from my chair and going to the store or going to work or whatever I should be doing instead, if a rabid wolf were attacking me, I'd be amply well motivated to move. If there was a fire underneath me and it was getting hotter and hotter, I would be motivated to move at some point. My ability to willfully ignore or non-willfully, my ability to non-willfully ignore shit by just allowing it to sort of happen would blow away as though tissue paper before any actual motivation to move, except for like the weird abstract motivations. So I think that's probably where the feeling thing comes in. It's like you can't keep very much shit in RAM, but you can keep but emotions are like TXT files. You can keep infinite of them in there in RAM. So even if you forget everything else, you'll still remember oh yeah, I'm sad because all of my loved ones died. If you somehow forget that they all died, your emotion will be there to remind you. Thanks for watching Talk with Famous People.